stuff that are used for this particular process here. And when it comes time to wiping it down, to be perfectly honest, what I typically do is I just take another piece of rag, wipe it down, and I'm ready now for that second coat of oil.
Charles,
Later
you
on.
wet sand?
What's that?
You wet sand?
Yes, but with the first coat. Some people wet sand the second coat. Okay, that's a good question though. This maple bowl, let's back up. There are 3 categories of wood, right? Hardwoods. What are they? No. Sorry about that. I couldn't resist.
A long list of hardwoods.
The long list of hardwoods. We break them down into 3 categories by the size of the actual pores. There's diffuse porous woods. Maple, birch, those types of wood have very, very fine pores in the wood. Then we have the other end of the spectrum, which are your ash and your oak, where with the naked eye, you can see the pores. And then there's a whole category of wood in between. Most of your fruit woods, the cherry, the walnut, all of those woods, they're what they call semi-ring porous or semi-diffuse porous. And basically in those woods, they start out in the growing year with large cells, pores. Not as big as the oaks, but they're bigger. And then as the growing season goes on, they actually get smaller and smaller and smaller. So if you look at a growth ring of one of these woods, and that's how you actually have to do all the identification and all that other stuff. But if you looked at a growth ring of a maple, it'd be all just fine little cells there, pores, I should say, not cells, pores in the wood. You look at the ring pores, you see the great big ones. Matter of fact, the number of rows determines what kind of wood it is and all that type of stuff. And then you look at the semi-ring porous woods, like a walnut, for example. You see big, and then it's like they taper right down to small. Okay, so what does that mean? What that means is that if I make something out of maple, I would not wet sand it, because those pores are so small that I can get a glass smooth. This right now is smooth as a baby's butt. And I just took that 220 sandpaper and sanded it down. Now you take this same piece in a cherry, it would take more sanding. And it might take 2 or 3 coats before it feels anywhere near as smooth as this. And it all has to do with the size of the actual pores in the wood. So, if I'm turning or finishing a black walnut bowl, then what I would do is I would apply the first coat of finish, and then with some 600 wet and dry sandpaper and the lathe going very, very slowly, 200 or 300 RPMs, I would wet sand that in, making sure I keep plenty of liquid finish on there. And then I would take a paper towel and wipe that all off. Basically what I'm doing is I'm sanding a slurry of finish and sawdust, trying to fill those pores in the wood. If you've got an oak or a ash, forget it. You got to put a finish on there. What you get is what you get. Oh, you can. There are wood fillers that you can put on your wood, which would actually fill those pores, and then you smooth that off. Okay. Now, I brought this one in to show this piece of cherry burl here. Excuse me, maple burl. Yeah, right. Has 1 coat of finish on it. Okay. A couple things I wanted to bring in. This was turned on a tenon in a 4-jaw chuck so that I could put it on the chuck and work it, obviously, and sand it. That's how we actually turned it. But most importantly, when it comes to finishing, once I get a coat of finish on there, I can grab a hold of it like this, take it out of the chuck, and take it in and set it on the table. The other thing that I wanted to mention here is that these are a classic example of something where this whole sanding process can only be done under where the bark is, obviously. And from the here up, this is where you're going to have to sand it all out by hand. Question for you. What's the difference between what they call a live edge bowl and a natural edge bowl? Anybody know?
Yeah, what?
Bark or no bark? Right, bark or no bark? Dog or cat? No. What's this? Let's get the bark on.
That's a semi-line.
Thank you. Yeah, that's all it had. So, no, I didn't know that, but because I've always used the names interchangeably. You know, we're going to turn a bark edge bowl, a live edge bowl, natural edge bowl. A natural top bowl was a topic that I used a lot. And then I got corrected big time and it said that if it has the bark on it, then it's a live edge bowl. But a natural top bowl, the bark is missing. And it just makes sense. It's just the natural ring itself. But even when I apply the finish on these, after I get this sanded down, I go through the same process by turning it by hand, coming up here, and the way that I approach these is I actually, when I'm turning it, I'll go down to go, in other words, follow the rim as you're going around. So I'm not doing any wiping business. It's all done while the whole bowl is turning so that I get a natural, consistent finish all the way around. But I did want to mention my thoughts on putting the finish on the bark. Because I definitely think, for me, that I should put finish on it. But I don't want the bark to be as shiny as the rest of the piece when I'm done. I want it to have that natural sort of look. So the method that I use, and nobody's told me different, so I still do it, but when I put that first coat of finish on this, I take a 1-inch wide foam brush and make sure that this whole bark edge is penetrated with the finish. And I have to be careful that I don't have places where there's too much finish. And that is done first, because if it drools down, I'm going to be going along the outside, the inside anyway afterwards. And then, on coats 2, 3, 4, 5, however many I put on there, I do not put finish on the bark itself. I put finish on the side of the bark that's been cut, but definitely not on the top surface of the piece. And then when I'm all done, and I say, okay, this is going to be the last coat of finish, I give it one more coat. And to protect the bark edge, after the sanding process, first, second, third times, I always blow this all off good with an air compressor to get all that white dust off the bark, even though I'm not going to put a coat of finish on it. And I think it works pretty decent on that type of bowl. Okay? So, this process will go on. Sand, lay on a coat of finish, and again, I'm laying it on with that little pad. I don't use anything but that. The only time I use the foam brushes is to do the bark. Or sometimes if I have a large, like a black walnut salad bowl, and I'm going to wet sand it, I will put the finish on with a foam brush just to get a lot of liquid on there. So here we are. This bowl has, I think, 5 or 6 coats of finish on it. So how many coats of finish do you put on there? And I think there are a number of indicators. There's no magic number, I don't think. Because some woods, like you might be able to, with a piece of maple, you might be able to put 4 coats of an oil finish on there, and you've got a pretty decent sheen on that piece. Okay? Other woods, like your walnuts, as I said, cherry is another one of those. The first thing I look for are what I call dry spots. They're areas on the finish. When you look at this thing 100%, inside, outside, or whatever, is there a film over the whole piece of wood? Because you're going to run into areas where it just, the finish hasn't glazed over yet. So it's going to take more coats. So you just have to go until you feel that you can work this finish with steel wool and feel confident that you're not going to go through the finish. You never want to approach the last finish doubting whether or not you're going to go through the finish. Because if you feel that way, stop, put another coat of finish on. Okay, you got to have that feeling with you that when you work at it. So this bowl, this is, again, this is one that's been remounted. This is one that Roxy did get right side up. Roxy's Brian's dog, and just chewed the rim and just pissed my dog off to no end. And so I'm trying to save Roxy's well-being, and I'm going to refinish this bowl. So the good news about a refinish job is there's so much finish on there. Once you get it sanded down, even if you sand and sand and sand, it's sealed up so the coats build up real fast. And you know, this bowl feels pretty good. But for me, pretty good, not going to hack it. We're going to do what we call finish the finish. And that's what they call it, or we call it in, or I did anyway, in cabinet making and woodwork. You know, when you lay that last coat of polyurethane on there, not so good, buddy. You got to finish the finish. In order to do that, you've got to have enough layers of finish on, as I said, so you can do it. So the first step in the process that I use, and again, I want to go back to the point that I made that I don't care if it's the sprayed lacquer and I'm doing the ornaments, or it's an oil finish that I just put on this walnut bowl. The process that I'm using is the same, and that is put enough finish coats on there so that I feel comfortable working that finish. Okay? So I'm going to take some steel wool. I'm going to use 4/0 steel wool, and I know I've said this before, but not all steel wools are created equal. By no means. If you go down to Hamshaw, and actually I think there's some in the cabinet there, but I won't bother to get it out. But if you take a look side by side at Hamshaw's steel wool, and it's not Hamshaw's, it's whatever brand they have to have, and the stuff purchased from a finishing company like Liberon and some of those, boy, there is no difference, no comparison, I should say, in the quality of the steel wool. And so it's well worth buying. You can buy it in pads. I buy it on these 2 or 5 pound rolls, and they last a good long time. Okay? But what we're going to do now is we are going to basically sand this piece until it is totally, evenly dull. I'm actually at this point at kind of not a matte finish, but definitely not a gloss type finish. Okay? And I mean, compared to, it was not looking too bad before, but now it's really sweet on the outside. This baby is nice and sweet. unbelievable. And we're gonna do that on the inside. Again, you gotta worry about that middle. You wanna make sure and go back and forth there. As a matter of fact, I often stop and in the middle, go across the middle, then fire it back up and buff again. Now, you don't have to use steel wool. You can use the pads there.
Micro mesh.
Yeah. Those are, what you're trying to do is you're just trying to find a really fine material. Now, let's talk about just one thing that I think is a kind of a misnomer. Some people will think that, I don't know who told them that, the 7th grade shop teacher or something, that you would use steel wool in between coats. Absolutely not. This is what we call a soft abrasive. If you've got bumps on there caused by finish, dust, or whatever, a soft abrasive is just going to take those nice pointed little marks and round them over. We want to take them off. So when you sandpaper, I would not consider telling anybody to use steel wool between coats of finish. To me, it just doesn't do the job that you want it to do. Okay, so this is buffed down, and at this point, this is kind of where you can decide how you want the finish to be. Because if you want a nice gloss finish, like on Brian's vase there, you can go to a buffing system, and you can buff it, and then with the white diamond or the triple E, and then give it a coat of carbon wax in that system. As I said, for the type of finish that I use, I'm going to wax it now. My all-time favorite is kiwi, but for those people who think they might die from having kiwi finish on the outside of there, there's also Town Talk wax, which is food safe. Smells like an orange. I mean, it's fantastic, right? It's good, but I still like kiwi. Okay? So I don't use much. I leave the little rag inside the container, and then I do put a little bit on there, but then that little bit of wax for a bowl this size is going to do the whole thing. So we're not talking, a whole bunch of finish. And this is exactly the same finish that was put on that butternut bowl in 1994. What I like about kiwi and some of these other waxes is that you don't even have to wait for it to dry. I used to talk to people about, when you polish your shoes, you just put the wax on there. Hell, college kids today, they never heard of polishing shoes. They had no idea.
They wear slippers.
I was just going to say that.
What's that?
They wear slippers to class.
Yeah, they do.
You wear pajamas to class.
Good. Good lads. What are we coming to here? So that's the finish, and it's, as you can see, I think you can see up there about the light what I'm seeing. It's it's kind of halfway between the matte finish and the dull finish. Now, because we know that the gloss is a condition of the refraction of light, if this is too overpowering for you, you can always go back to your steel wool for the good quality stuff, because it's real fine, and you can just go over that and you can kill that shine if you want to. So, and I have on occasion, particularly on pieces of furniture, I used to do this all the time, but on a bowl, you can cut that back, and there's enough wax left on there, but I mean, that thing is smooth. reiterate, this process of put a coat on, sand it, another coat, sand it, until you feel you've got enough finish on there. Then it's steel wool and wax is exactly what I used on these ornaments here to get that nice quality finish. And in no time did I have to do any, what I call hand sanding, where I would have to touch this up. You know, as I said, on a natural edge bowl or something like that, you might have to, but normally not. And I mean, I brought this in just to show, you know, but probably Kane did the same thing when you do these hollow vessels. You always allow enough wood on the end so that you've got your tenon, and then you've got a little bit of space so that when you put your coat of finish on here, whatever it's going to be, you can grab a hold of it, set it on the rack, and not tie up your chocks and face plates and all of that good stuff. Questions?
When you put the wax on the ornament with those perforations, does the wax get down into the perforations?
No, because I use so little, and I'm actually very, very conscious of that. I would do the whole sides of that sphere. Then when I'm sure there's no wax on that rag, good point. You know, yeah, that's always a good point. And that's like, I find it difficult sometimes doing these because just like putting the finish on, and I don't want wax to get on here. So I'm very careful when you get up around that edge there. Yeah, but you know, I think that if you just, it's the bad news about finishing is that everybody is looking for a finish that I can put one coat on and it's going to be absolutely gorgeous. And with wood, as far as I know, unless you're going to dip it in epoxy and then buff it down, I don't know of any finish that's going to give you that effect. You're going to have to, it's going to take some time to get a good quality finish on these things. And then, you know, I can't emphasize enough, you know, I see these turnings, but an awful lot of turnings that I see and I feel, I say to myself when I'm feeling it, if they had just gone that extra step, this last one, when you lay that nice last coat of finish on there, you say, no, I really feel, you know, other than spraying on lacquer that I've seen automobiles do, you know, the finisher that we generally use in the shop, I think you have to finish that finish. I think you have to go that one extra step to get that ultra smooth. And basically all you're doing is you're taking any irregularities that you had on there. And I wanted to mention that I didn't use it, but if you are worried about the dust and so forth, they do have tack cloths that you can buy, that you can wipe your pieces with. As I said, I'm lazy, and very typically I do not use a tack cloth, but you can. Okay. Hey.
Charlie, just,
Yeah.
could you explain again how you're going to get the bowl off of the waste block?
Sure. I'm either going to do one of two things. Take the screws out, and I can put this, I can reverse the bowl. I can turn this off, which is probably what I would do with this one. If I've got this bowl here, what I'll probably do, this is a remount, so it's a little different. I know that I've only got about a ½ inch of rim. Remember I showed you this here. The glue is only on this outside rim right here. So I can't go in here too far. But then I'll just take a little part in as far as I dare to. And then I'll just take a little Japanese saw and cut it off.
Oh, okay. Because the way I was taught was to use like a bow saw.
Sure, you can.
Okay.
That'll work.
Okay. Which works great.
Yeah, it works. Hey, thank you very much for coming. And we'll see you hopefully in December